Appreciate that.
Okay.
Let me do all this good stuff. A little bit different station we had earlier. It's great to see all of you here today. Thank you. For those of you who have seen me before, I was here, I think, a year ago,
Yes.
when that exact discussion was happening with Dr. Ryer and Mary, and as we were trying to discover some ways that our new organization that was formed in Kokomo, Indiana, which for those of you who aren't from here is about 45 minutes east of here. I'm sorry, directly east of here. And I thought what I'd do today is talk a little bit about where we were as a community, what we were facing, some of the things that happened, and then allow also our partners in this, which include Laura Sheets, who's going to speak in a minute, and Don McCurry, one of our consultants, how we got to where we are. Just to give you a quick snapshot, Kokomo, Indiana, a couple of quick things. Heavily reliant on the automotive industry. It's not a secret. We found out also that there was uncertainty in those leading industry sectors back in 2008. Everybody knew that. This wasn't a secret. But we were about 25% at that time, and probably about 40% of our economy. 25% of our employment, 40% of our economy. In a county is about 85,000 people. Very self-sustaining, operating in a vacuum. Employers in our community, they were maybe manufacturing product, maybe bringing product in and out of the market, but they were coming to us. We did not have to do anything. We also then, getting back in the early 2000s, started seeing rising unemployment rates associated with that because of the change in the industry models. Forbes magazine, Dr. Ryer was talking about how we were trying to strategically put our brain around this. About the time we were retooling our organization, Laura was on the committee that was helped doing that, and I pick up the paper and there's an article in there about Kokomo being potentially one of the top 5 diningest cities in America, and I'm being interviewed for this job. Like, well, you know, let me think about this for a second. Point is that there was no diversification, limited diversification. Our whole economy was being driven by that. Not that that's wrong or bad if it's successful. What our board of directors and our community leadership, which was led by industry, higher education, government, healthcare, we're all looking at what Kokomo and Howard County, and our region for that matter, could be for the future. So this is how the table was set a year ago. And part of those conversations began, what kind of things can we do as a community, impacting our region as well as our employment base to be prepared for the future, look for new industry and emerging industry opportunities, while respecting and encouraging and retaining the structure that we already have in place. How do we do that as a community? We had just completed last year when I was here a strategic plan that kind of set out what those initiatives are, what we should fit into this category. But we also didn't know what else we would do besides maybe be more proactive with business attraction. And when I say that, this is in your packet. I won't go through this, but you can see the heavy lean towards manufacturing. And if you really put all that in there, including what the local spending was in the retail marketplace, the number was much larger than that 30%, obviously. The actual economic impact, if you go down the list of direct, indirect, and consumer, was closer to 78%. So the much larger number of how our community is being affected by that. So we set out on some ideas. One was we want to get into more business attraction. We want to respect our local communities, but we want to do more. How are we going to do this? We're going to target some audiences that we thought would be right. We use some different techniques. We generate some leads, and the output is jobs and investment. We all agreed on that as a community. We also agreed that these would be our audiences. Here's what we were going to target. Here's what we're going to look at to do business attraction. These are not really overly unique, but these are partners we had in that. Here's our techniques that we're using, and we are using these today, that we weren't using before because we didn't need to. Face-to-face visits, direct mail, email, trade shows, media, the typical outlets that we would have to go out and recruit opportunities to take the next phase and sell our community. this was just kind of a quick snapshot of where we were last year. We had about eight prospects. We had 2 new companies that we'd gotten at our technology park. We had 3 workforce and training companies move into the community, and we had 3 market and facility tours. This was a year ago when I was here. Targeted industries were advanced energy, advanced manufacturing, next generation, medical device, clean technology. Everybody has those. If there's an economic developer out there that doesn't tell you they have the best quality of life, then they're not doing their job. So we were trying to figure out how we fit all these together. What were we going to do next? Fortunately, our community, and actually Tippecanoe County was part of a federal grant, 14 county area for a wired grant. This grant allowed us over a 3-year period to look at, really do some asset mapping for this community. We were fortunate enough to be a part of that. This really led us to say, okay, we've got our strategy down now. We've got an agreeable way to process this. How are we going to make sure that Kokomo and Howard County and our short region, meaning our 6 county area, is going to be the best position to succeed? One of the things that we started talking about was this diversification, and that led to this kind of conversation with Dr. Iyer. That conversation began, here's what we're trying to do, here's what we would like to do. We don't know how to completely do all these things, but we know that we have to be different than everybody else. There are a lot of communities out there that are in a similar situation to us, not just in the U.S. and in the Midwest, but all over the world. I was at I think it was a couple nights ago, but there's a book that's been published that you may have read about. There's been some publicity about it recently called At the Crossroads, which is really an automotive history of central and north central Indiana. Centered around Kokomo, Anderson, Marion, written by Abe Armador and Ted Evanoff, a couple of writers for the Indianapolis Star, that talked about the automotive history and their impacts on environments like ours. And it was really an interesting discussion about how communities were trying to attack the issues that we were trying to attack. This book really lays the groundwork out. Ted Evanoff, one of the writers, he said that one of the interesting things about this whole process with this book is that the East and West Coast look at the Midwest and say it's dead. It's a no. There's nothing to do with the Midwest. Manufacturing is dying. There's nothing for us to do. Everything's going offshore. So we're going to focus on the financial markets, the service market, the technology market, and that's how we're going to focus on that. This counterbalanced that and said that there's still an opportunity for all of us to leverage what our history says, what we're good at. Back to that asset mapping, what we found we were really, really good at, besides those industry sectors I mentioned, was that we knew how to make things, and we were innovative about that. And we could take and transfer technologies away from our traditional manufacturing into emerging industry sectors. So as we had these discussions, and I will tell you that Dr. Iyer's concept and his coffee with the other professors and with the idea fit perfectly into how we were thinking about diversifying this opportunity. And Mary's leadership and Don on our side, in conjunction with engaging the students that I think really enjoyed this project. And that's really what we're here to talk about today, is how this project's helping us and how we were able to engage the center. But what we found is that there was a supply chain that had shrunk directly associated with our 2 or 3 large employers. When I say shrunk, it doesn't mean it went away. The supply chain was there. It was changing. That's why you're all here, is to know how that changes. What was different is that we had some companies in our region that were supplying our larger folks, such as Chrysler, with an uncertainty out there of where they were going to be in the future, which, by the way, a year ago, I think I would have told you, and I think I probably did tell you, that there was a lot of concern over what the future of our largest employer was, our largest manufacturer. It's the largest footprint in the Chrysler family in North America. The casting plant is the largest user of aluminum in North America. Employs probably about 5,000 people now, and a year ago we weren't sure if there were going to be any. Maybe it was last summer. We weren't sure there were going to be any. They announced this year earlier that they, in 2 different announcements, that Kokomo, the footprint of Kokomo's 4 facilities is really going to be the future of the 8-speed transmission. We're going to invest about $350 million during that period of time, stabilize our workforce, and will be the center for that transmission manufacturing technologies for Chrysler Fiat going forward. Now that's a big difference from where I probably was standing last year and saying, I'm not sure what we're going to do. Again, that's not all due to the economic development efforts, not due to government. That's a series of different pieces that had to come together, but it's a real testament to the leadership in the Kokomo facilities because they actually turned those plants into the future development of the transmission for the new model in about a third of the time that they did in the Fiat other models in Europe. So we said, how can we distinguish ourselves? We're looking for stabilization here. We know that some of our suppliers are in place in this region. We know that there's some suppliers in the area that are still supplying Delphi, Chrysler, Haynes International, GM components. How do these fit together if their market has shrunk, and how can we help them diversify and look for ways to secure them in our market? So these are smaller suppliers. So the theory is that how do we transform them into emerging markets? We're not going to take away from what they do, but if they did $1 million and now they're still doing it's still 80% of their business, but that's about $200,000, they are in a position that to survive, to look for new ways to get into new industries. So we came up with this theory, and Don's going to talk a little bit in a minute about what the tool does and how we are using the tool. But I thought I'd talk just briefly about that. There's really 4 things that we came out of this idea, which is how do we take our suppliers, help them look at new ways to impact or interject into new industry sectors, emerging industry sectors, and wind energy. Everybody's talking about how to get into wind energy, solar energy, and those kind of pieces, but also other emerging industries. And how do we showcase those suppliers to put us in a better position to be more competitive than other markets who are also seeking new and emerging industry sectors, manufacturing and logistics and those types of things. So what we did was we really found a better way through this project to aggregate this data to put us in a better sales position. We had 24 companies participate, and Don, like I said, Don will tell you a little bit more specifically about the tool. We had 24 companies participate. I think Hewitt was one of those actually that was kind enough to get information with the help of, led by Dr. Iyer and Mary with the students, drill down this information for these key suppliers, be able to showcase those in a way that we could show off our capabilities in a way that no other market could do, respond more effectively to those opportunities that come through our door or that we're chasing in requests for proposals, requests for information. And we are using this information right now. And then also identify these targets or voids that might be in there, in that supply chain. Little different way of thinking, non-traditional economic development strategy. And we said, we'll be the beta site. We'd love to be the beta site. We know that at that point, we're probably 18-19% unemployment. We're looking for ways to help our existing businesses and get into new and diverse industry sectors. So the whole strategy behind this was, since the tool will be going live on our website, we've been playing around with it and using it on our own so far, but we'll be actually web-enabled on the Alliance's website, which will be launched in early October, which will allow site consultants, decision makers, third parties to aggregate to grab this aggregate data of needs that might be in our community and then eventually our region that can be available to them as a resource when they're looking at sourcing out a new manufacturing facility in emerging industry sectors. There's nobody that has anything like this. It partners nicely with Don and the IEDC state tool of supplier linkages. And it's a perfect tool for us to showcase out to those third-party decision makers. So our strategy was, how do we diversify ourselves to be more diverse to those decision makers and influencers as our economy continues to redevelop. So it's been a fun process for us. It's been a learning process for us. But really want to kind of give you a snapshot where our community was, things that we're thinking at, and how the center, Dr. Iyer, and others came to us to partner for something that's underutilized as a community, which is our suppliers that are based in this region that we believe have new opportunities. So, yes, sir.
Quick question. This is available free of charge, or do you act as consultants in helping them to utilize this? I'm just thinking in terms of opportunity.
Well, that's a great question. We continue to utilize the tool, us personally, and also have that out there on the web. We think this is an opportunity for this to be modeled in other communities and regions that maybe have different industry sectors that they're targeting or interested in, or have the asset map to support. So maybe different industries selected in their process. But I think the strategy is that this makes so much sense, and for us as a, like I said, we're already using this tool to respond to requests for proposals that are coming in, and we've used it for a couple that came in through the state through the state of Indiana, the IDC actually, where we were able to pull some data like that, say, do you have any plastic extruders in your region? We could pull some information down right away and say, yeah, and by the way, here's how you find them. That helps support our case. I think the idea is to use we're utilizing ourselves as kind of the petri dish with the hopes that this can continue to grow regionally, meaning we have more participants in it than we have currently at the first stage. And then eventually it becomes a model that can be used in other communities for different industry sectors. And I think that was always part of kind of our discussion, which was we're trying to change our vision on economic development where we needed to be, because we hadn't had to be in that position before. And this is just one way for us to hopefully lead that and be the test market for it. So the idea is yes, I think Dr. Iron and students would love to take that to other communities.
Absolutely.
So.
Thank you.
Thank you.